Euphoria finally let its characters graduate. It just forgot to let them grow up. Cassie has a mansion, Jules has a penthouse, and Rue is trafficking drugs. Because nothing says adulthood like better real estate and organized crime.
Remember me?
But if 4 years can change everything except these people, are we watching The Consequences? Or a show that has stopped believing anyone can heal? Welcome to Break It Down, where we don't just review movies and television, we dig through the pretty cinematography, questionable decisions, and psychological wreckage underneath. If you like stories examined with equal parts curiosity, psychology, and sarcasm, subscribe now. Because around here, even beautiful disasters deserve a proper diagnosis. That disbelief becomes stranger when you look at who returned to East Highland. Zendaya spent the hiatus turning Chani in Dune and Tashi in Challengers into women whose choices move worlds. Jacob Elordi escaped Nate's jawline and found complicated monsters in Saltburn, Priscilla, and Frankenstein. Sydney Sweeney went from The White Lotus to Anyone But You. Hunter Schafer carried Cuckoo. Even Maude Apatow stepped onto the New York stage. The actors grew up in public. Their characters spent 4 years circling the same emotional parking lot. Behind the camera is still Sam Levinson, creator, writer, director, and Hollywood's most expensive argument against having a writer's room. Euphoria began as his American reinvention of Ron Lesham's Israeli series, then became the style Bible for a generation. But after season 2 misplaced half its character arcs, Levinson created The Idol, a show about exploitation that occasionally appeared to forget it was criticizing exploitation. So season 3 arrives with an imbalance, a cast that has become bigger, sharper, and more capable, trapped inside a universe that keeps mistaking escalation for development. Maybe Euphoria's problem isn't that its characters refuse to grow. Maybe the person writing them doesn't know what growth looks like. To be fair, season 3 does something season 2 forgot. It tells a story. The cast is smaller, the narrative lanes are cleaner, and each episode no longer feels like 17 browser tabs fighting to play music at once. Cassie and Nate occupy a suburban nightmare. Rue gets dragged into a crime noir. Everyone else is trying to turn adulthood into a costume convincing enough to wear in public. And visually, the show remains offensively gorgeous. Cinematographer Marcel Rev shoots the season on a custom Kodak stock designed to evoke classic Hollywood, while Hans Zimmer joins Labyrinth on the score, because apparently Zimmer followed Zendaya home from Arrakis. The Western guitars, neon nights, and widescreen emptiness give this version of Euphoria a Pulse Season 2 misplaced. For a moment, the makeover works. There is momentum. There are consequences. Scenes appear to be heading somewhere rather than auditioning to become TikTok edits. But beauty has always been Euphoria's favorite alibi. The more polished this world becomes, the easier it is to miss what has disappeared underneath it: intimacy. We can see Rue more clearly than ever, yet feel further away from her. And that distance is where Season 3's failure begins. Because in Season 1, Rue's addiction was frightening precisely because it was intimate. It lived in her lies, Gia's fear, and the humiliation of needing relief more than dignity. Sam Levinson did not need a cartel, the DEA, or a Nazi cowboy with a lasso. Zendaya could make reaching for a bathroom door feel like a bank robbery. The danger was that she could look someone she loved in the face and choose the drug anyway. Season 3 takes that private terror and gives it a Hollywood upgrade. Rue swallows packages, crosses the Mexican border, works for Lori, becomes a DEA informant, survives gunfire, and gets dragged through the dirt behind a horse. Apparently, withdrawal was not cinematic enough. Addiction needed its own Fast and Furious spin-off. The scale gets bigger, but Rue gets smaller. She stops feeling like the subject of the story and starts functioning as the vehicle carrying us from one outrageous set piece to another. This matters psychologically because repetition changes our response. When every episode raises the threat, the nervous system adapts. Yesterday's overdose becomes today's drug run. Today's drug run needs tomorrow's shootout. This is habituation. The more frequently an audience is exposed to intensity, the more intensity it takes to produce the same reaction. Euphoria keeps increasing the dosage. What it misses is the irony that a series about addiction has become addicted to escalation. And buried inside all that noise is a fascinating version of Rue. She is sober for much of the season, yet she remains dependent on crisis. Her substance use may have changed, but her nervous system still recognizes danger as home. She smuggles drugs, lies, bargains, and keeps moving because stillness would force her to meet the grief she has spent years outrunning. Recovery can end the substance before it ends the life built around needing it. Rue's interest in faith could have deepened that idea. She listens to the Bible, encounters a Christian family, and begins asking whether surrender might offer something control never did. Not religion as a magical cure, but faith as the terrifying possibility that she could stop fighting long enough to be held. The season places Rue between two compulsions: the need to survive through chaos, and the desire to believe survival can mean more than another morning. That is the show I wanted to watch. Then the finale gives Rue a laced Percocet and kills her on Allie's couch. And this is where Euphoria's language of consequences becomes slippery. Rue does not knowingly choose fentanyl. Alamo gives her a pill designed to kill her because he discovers she has been informing for the DEA. That is murder, not addiction collecting a debt. But the series packages her death as the final warning attached to her history, as though every road she could take was secretly bending back toward the same body on the same couch. There is a difference between consequence and punishment. A consequence grows organically from a choice. Punishment is when the storyteller steps into the frame, points at someone, and announces the moral bill has arrived. Season 3 repeatedly confuses the two. Nate is buried alive and finished by a rattlesnake. Rue is poisoned after seeking a way out. Sex workers are degraded, exploited, or endangered. Nobody merely lives with what they have done. The universe arranges a personalized death trap and sends an invoice. Once Rue dies, the finale barely allows her death to belong to her. The story shifts into Allie's revenge, giving Coleman Domingo a Western showdown at Alamo's strip club. It is also a bizarre emotional trade. The woman whose addiction defined the series becomes the motivation for a man's gunfight. Rue exits before the midpoint, and the show spends nearly half an hour proving it can stage carnage. Even in death, she is pushed aside by the spectacle surrounding her. Her family receives even less space. Leslie and Gia, the people who absorb the daily impact of Rue's addiction, are absent from the emotional aftermath. Jules paints her. Lexi feels guilty. Cassie reduces her to a drug addict. The people who knew Rue become symbols arranged around a lesson instead of human beings trying to understand an impossible loss. Grief turns into production design. So let me ask you, what exactly is the final message here? That addiction is dangerous? We understood that in the pilot. That bad choices have consequences? Rue has been paying those consequences with her body, her family, and her sense of self since season 1. Or is the message darker, that some people can struggle, pray, help the government, escape the dealer, and still remain narratively condemned by the worst thing they ever did? That is fatalism, not realism. Recovery is not clean, inspirational, or guaranteed. But honest tragedy shows us the road that might have existed beside the one taken. Euphoria closes every exit and then congratulates itself for being brave enough to show us the wall. There is nothing courageous about declaring a damaged person doomed after writing the universe to ensure it. The frustrating part is that Zendaya can communicate all of this without a speech. Give her silence with Allie, a glance toward Gia, or 5 uncomfortable minutes in an ordinary room, and she can make Rue's conflict unbearable. But season 3 doesn't trust ordinary pain anymore. It needs deserts, guns, fentanyl, scripture, horses, and a Hans Zimmer guitar reminding us that something very important is happening. Subtle, apparently, died somewhere near the border. And that is why Rue's ending feels less like the conclusion of an addiction story and more like the abandonment of one. The show once asked whether love could reach someone who could not yet love herself. Now it answers with a corpse. Rue is the loudest example, but she is not the only character trapped inside this punishment machine. Cassie, Nate, Maddie, and Jules all enter adulthood carrying different wounds, and season 3 finds ways to make sure none of them heal. Take Cassie. In high school, Sydney Sweeney played her like someone who could only locate herself through another person's desire. 5 years later, she has a mansion, a ring from Nate, and a paying online audience. On paper, that is reinvention. Psychologically, it is the same wound with better lighting. Cassie has not escaped the bathroom mirror, she has simply turned the entire house into one. Every upload asks the question she has always asked. If enough people want me, does that finally make me worth keeping? That is repetition compulsion, the unconscious habit of recreating an old injury while hoping this version will end differently. Cassie keeps choosing Nate because his rejection activates the exact insecurity his approval temporarily quiets. Their engagement is not proof that they matured. It is their high school trauma receiving a mortgage. Nate's version is even darker. Jacob Elordi gives him the posture of a man who believes control is the same thing as safety. He builds businesses, claims property, and attempts to manufacture the respectable life his father contaminated. But the rage is still there, now wearing work boots and discussing real estate. Instead of forcing Nate to confront the fear, shame, and violence beneath that performance, the show buries him alive and brings in a rattlesnake. Therapy was apparently unavailable, but the wildlife department came through. Again, that is punishment replacing development. Nate dying spectacularly prevents him from doing the far more difficult thing, living long enough to understand what he became. Death closes his account without requiring accountability. Maddie appears to have moved further. Alexa Demi's character becomes a talent manager, transforming the social intelligence she once used for survival into a profession. She understands image, leverage, and desire better than almost anyone. Yet the story drags her back into another dangerous man's orbit, eventually reducing her success to another route toward captivity. Euphoria lets her acquire power, then seems personally offended that she has it. Jules receives an even stranger fate. Hunter Schafer once played her as Euphoria's most searching character, a person exploring gender, desire, fantasy, and the difference between being loved and being projected onto. Season 3 turns her into a wealthy man's mistress and, eventually, a silent painter mourning Rue. She becomes the beautiful, sad image another character would have been in Season 1. Even Lexi remains an observer. Maud Apatow's former playwright now works as an assistant helping manufacture other people's stories. She changed industries without changing positions. New jobs, new homes, same emotional assignments. The time jump does not reveal who these people became. It reveals how efficiently adults can decorate the coping mechanisms they never outgrew. And look at the pattern underneath those assignments. The women are repeatedly humiliated, sexualized, endangered, or punished for trying to control how they are seen. The men receive grand crimes, operatic deaths, and Western mythology. So here is the question Euphoria accidentally leaves us with. Why are its men allowed to become monsters, while its women are punished for becoming visible? So let us return to the question we started with. Are these characters facing consequences? Or has Euphoria simply stopped believing damaged people can heal? For me, the answer is beneath gorgeous Kodak grain. Season 3 mistakes suffering for honesty. It assumes the bleakest ending must be the bravest, that killing a character proves the show understands the danger surrounding them. But beautiful deaths are not automatically profound. Sometimes misery is just misery wearing an expensive lens. And that is frustrating because Euphoria still contains flashes of the show it used to be. Zendaya remains extraordinary. Sydney Sweeney can turn Cassie's need for attention into something painful rather than ridiculous. Jacob Elordi understands that Nate's violence is built over terror. Hunter Schafer can communicate a relationship through one unfinished look. Marcel Rev makes loneliness glow, and Hans Zimmer can make a suburban driveway sound like the gates of judgment are opening. The talent never disappeared. The tenderness did. Euphoria was once powerful because it understood that healing is humiliatingly ordinary. It happens through apologies that do not fix everything, mornings when someone chooses not to use, family members learning where love ends and enabling begins, and damaged people sitting together without any guarantee that tomorrow will be better. None of that requires a horse, a cartel, or a rattlesnake with excellent timing. Maybe that is why this final season feels so distant. It keeps searching for bigger ways to demonstrate pain when the characters already taught us what pain looked like years ago. What they needed now was not escalation. They needed possibility. I did not need Rue to receive an inspirational ending. That would have been dishonest too. I needed the show to understand that relapse is not moral failure, survival is not purity, and recovery cannot be measured by whether someone becomes convenient to love. Rue deserved an ending that belonged to her, not one that transformed her death into fuel for someone else's Western revenge fantasy. And Cassie, Maddie, Jules, Lexi, and even Nate deserved more than becoming beautifully photographed evidence for a lesson Sam Levinson had already decided to teach. But I want to know what you think. Did Season 3 deliver a fearless ending about addiction and consequence? Or did it confuse cruelty with courage? And most importantly, when Rue died, did you feel devastated? Or did you realize the show had pushed you so far away that you could no longer feel anything? Tell me in the comments, because that answer says more about Euphoria's final season than any rating ever could. And if you enjoy breaking through the spectacle to find the psychology underneath, subscribe to Break It Down. We do not ask whether a show was good or bad, we ask why it stayed with us, what it accidentally revealed, and why a prestige drama needed a cowboy, a strip club, and a spiritually significant rattlesnake to make its point. Until next time, keep watching closely. The prettiest stories usually have something hiding underneath.